just wanted to remind you that we're having dean meetings the week of December 17th through the 20th. So, and if you need to change that, let me know, and we'll make adjustments. And I can't read. I'm still trying to get used to it. And then we had goal sheets for you to fill out. If you still have it, you can bring it. I also wanted to give you another idea.
Can I get a copy?
Yeah, I can. I need your email address. I can just email you one. You can also do this. For my kids, I decided that didn't work for me. So what I did is I took each of their subjects and we actually wrote down what we were wanting them to do, so that it was a little more in detail, a little more understandable. The teachers have been able to go in, pull out their file, and say, oh, what was the parent wanted them to know. And because it's in a little more detail, they could look at it and say, okay, we need to back up and focus on what your parent wants you to do. And so that is another option if you want to do something like that. For me, it was better. And it was better for the kids. Well, my kids have actually copied this and put it in their notebook, so they have to look at too. And then when I was in their class or wherever I was, and I look, oh, okay, we're on goal, or oh, we need to step it up right here, right there. So that's an option for you as well if you would like to change that. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. And it might be easier for you or for your children. But I do like having this in their files for the teachers to run in and look at and see. We do go over it with the teachers, but it's always there, and so they'll know. Today, as I was going through what we call 6 essentials, it dawned on me today that 6 essentials are something that we need to do every single day. And so I'm just going to tell you what they are. We're not going to address them all because I know you know I will. The first one is dress code. The dress code is also going to help us to invite the Spirit. Then we have a devotional every day, which helps to bring in the Spirit, which we have our song and our prayer and our pledge of allegiance, just like we do today. We do the same thing with the children. These are things that we do every day to bring the Spirit here to teach every one of us, not just students, but teachers alike. We have recall, and I'll go over that in just a minute. We have relationships in our class with the teachers, each student. What I've discovered is that with relationships, if we can have a good relationship between the parents and their children and the teachers and the staff, we can get their grades to jump 3 grades in a year. And so it's really, if we can work on that, if we can bring the relationship between all of us and the Heavenly Father, we can fast forward these kids into their potential that Heavenly Father has for them and where He wants them to go. We are in a very sped up time. I don't know if you feel it, but the scriptures talk about time being sped up, and there is a reason for that. And we need to be on the Lord's side and fast-pacing ourselves with Him, getting ourselves where we need to be and these kids need to be. We also have intrinsic values that are taught every day in each of their subjects, and they're all God-centered, teaching them how each of their subjects is going to help them math, science in their everyday life. And then at the end, we also have a devotional to hopefully have the kids lead with the Spirit and with that power of, this is what Heavenly Father wants me to do, and I can do this, and I can become what God intends me to be. What each child sitting in this room, each parent sitting in this room, God has a different intent for each one of us. He knows what it is. So if we can have the kids get that Spirit, they will get where they need to go. I want to back up a little bit and go over recall. Recall is something we do every single day, and it is to help all of us um, learn to listen to the Spirit and listen to what He has to say. We normally ask the kids to um, think about or write down whatever the Spirit tells them about the lesson they were taught on religion or in history. Um, Thank you. I did have those copied to hand out. I forgot. But also, if a child doesn't remember, we need to instill in them to sit there and have just a second and have a personal prayer within themselves, within ourselves as teachers or parents, and then ask the Spirit, what is it you want me to know today? What is it you want me to learn? And maybe it isn't what you learned in the scripture or whatever, but Spirit will teach us. It's like today I was sitting in senior class, and I really am not sure what they learned the day before, so I asked this Lord, what is it you want me to know today? And He taught me specific things that made me cry, and I'm like, okay, I need to know all that. So each of the kids, if they can learn to do this, they can learn to understand when the Spirit is talking to them, and they can hear it. And that is vital for us to get through life and for them. We've got a lot of challenges out there. So we're trying to practice recall at least twice a day. We have a little bit, recall for the junior students they can practice writing it down, and sometimes we give, well, even the parents can get those, or that's where we get the those from. Can you write down 10-word facts or 5-word facts? Depends on where they're at. Some of the very younger kids can't do that. They can't even write. So it's have them draw a picture of something that they remember or something that they are feeling. Sometimes we do oral recall with each other, and so they're asked a question and then they can answer what comes to their mind. So we kind of can do that as well. We have intrinsic values. I'm sorry, I didn't do it. Would you mind getting me one? No, I should get out there. As you'll find out. We're kind of in a learning phase with kids, unlearning some things that we may have learned from society and some things we've learned in public school and some things we've learned in other places. But religious study is learning how to apply scripture to the everyday life with religious studies. And I wanted to kind of give you an example. We have a student that was asked to take a scripture of a life and turn it into a life experience and how to use the scriptures to solve a problem. And at first, the student was kind of, I don't know, a little taken back by that. But they took it home and worked on it and ended up writing several pages, used several scriptures of a life situation. And I was amazed as I read through it, how they actually understood that scripture and how they were able to turn it in to solve a problem. And that's what we would like these kids to learn, is how they've learned this in the scriptures. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to solve this problem over here, or I'm going to do this with life. And so that's what we're hoping for in learning religion. Learning how to lose oneself in academic service with language arts. I know of some students that knew of a gentleman that was sick, and they took a car to him in the hospital. And he's not of our religion, but was very impressed by the academic service that they had taken to him. And when his wife, or when he passed away, the wife responded with her academic service and letting her know that as long as these people were her neighbors, he knew that she would be taken care of. So we don't know how our academic service is going to serve others. So it's important for us to help these kids to learn that these little things that they think are kind of crazy or mom's out of her mind are important. And they don't know how it's going to affect somebody else's life. Learning how to think learn to think and self-govern using correct math principles. There again, it's an everyday life. Learning our math and how it affects us in everyday life. And learning that their math is not just figuring out problems on the board. It's learning how to use it in everyday life and applying it to everyday situations. Learning how to search the scriptures with science. This is a new one for me. I'm still working on learning this one too, but science is actually the Lord's plan, not man's plan, and they've tried to manipulate it into their own way. So it's teaching us and the children to go back to the Lord's plan. And if you will go back to science the way the Lord intended it, oh my word, He'll teach you a whole other world. And it's incredible if you'll let the Spirit teach you. And it's interesting as the kids go along there, they start seeing it in their own lives and thinking, wow, the Lord really is real. And it's not Darwin's theory or somebody else's theory out there. This is actually the Lord's. Learning how to ponder in the heart God's relationship to mankind by studying history. And it's been interesting. I didn't even realize we were learning it. I guess I have been learning it through my life, but I didn't realize it till I got in here that the whole Book of Mormon, the whole Bible, all of it is history. And it's literally God's dealing with man and how He deals with individuals or nations or whatever. And we can learn from those to help us through our lives. And that's why we have these intrinsic values, to help these kids and us to learn how to do this and get through these times where the Lord needs valiant servants to stand up for the things He needs. So I challenge you to do your best. Love your kids and us, because we need your love too. It'll work. And I leave that with the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, we'd like to now separate into classes. And so you folks can stay here and I'll take Miranda because she had her kids. May I just share one thing with you before we go? As parents, this is the November Enzyme Conference talks. Every single one of us needs to read Dallin Oak's talk. That is one of the most fantastic, one of the most greatest, that tells us exactly where this church is sitting and what it will do and will not do. And we need to read that, and maybe we'll find ways to help our young people to understand it. It's just a magnificent talk. And so you know, you hear it in conference, but then if you don't, they don't go back and read it. Pretty soon you think, yeah, I talked about you. Gee, I don't know if I can remember what he said. And so it's good to go back and read it because it can be a great asset to us. It's on page 72, by the way.
Okay. It's my turn. Okay. I don't like standing up here. It feels like I just should sit down and just discuss with you guys. Thank you. Okay, my job is just to go over of the things that we've been working on, kind of, and that we will be working on in each subject. Okay, so we've got Book of Mormon, and we've just ended 2200, Brother Jared. We have the barge pictures. I wish we could have found Megan's. It was so.
She drew four barges
on her feet.
from the top, like looking down on them.
And
She showed the whole top.
Yeah.
They were both cool, and then she had recognized the mountainous waves crashing down, so she drew this big wave around the bottom part.
It was so
There's a lot
awesome.
of thought put into these,
Yeah.
and I was really impressed.
And it's somewhere in her book or backpack, it should
I
be.
guarantee it's there.
I know, because she was wanting to finish coloring it, and so, and then Kelson kept his for some reason, he never turned his, and so he'll have to show you his. But, I don't know if you got to see Miranda's and Joseph's, oh, and Emma's, yeah. But those are, I know that would reminded me of them. But I love, because today we talked about how they praised, and I love how she added praise in there.
She put that through her emotion.
Yeah.
It's very important.
So, those are really,
I do too.
yeah,
I think that's.
yeah. The 2 holes were for, yeah, that's what I thought. But, so that was really fun today. I had a lot of fun this week with 2200. Maybe that's just because it's my favorite hook date. And so, excuse me. So the next 2 weeks, so the rest of December, next week we'll be working on 600 Lehigh and Mulek. And then the next week is 130 Mosiah and Benjamin. And I kind of had a cool idea, and I wonder how it will work out. But for Lehigh and his dream, because I think this month or this time around it's focusing more on his dream. I wanted to set up the room as a way, like the way his dream was set up. And I don't know how I would do that. But I remember when I was young, I walked into one of my primary classes and she set it up that way, and it's been effective in my mind ever since. And so I thought it would be cool when they walked in one morning, it was all somehow, so I'll have to work on that more. But yeah, so somehow we'll go on to planning that this weekend. But so that's what we're focusing on this week for Book of Mormon.
Rice Krispie treats for light.
So, one of the things that I've been they are, it's my favorite treat.
I don't know if you want to share them though. What, you wanna go to the station? See you later.
Exactly. One of the things that I really wanted to focus on this, for Book of Mormon is teaching them how to recall. And so we've been doing the silent recall, 10 to 15 minutes, just gauging on the restlessness of the room. But they've been doing really good. And in fact, here's some recall of theirs. There's Kelson from Book of Mormon. So fun to read theirs. Loved it. There's Miranda's. Yeah. And then Megan, she decided to do Samuel. And so there's that. And then she also, I don't know if this, I think this was just part of her recall.
It was a sentence she was supposed to do in language arts, and today was that final thing.
Yeah.
And she
Okay.
just started writing that sentence while you were talking today.
Okay, so
She was
there's,
supposed to incorporate the two one-word
okay, gotcha.
one-letter words into one sentence.
She just
Even
came
a
up to
very long
me and
sentence.
she's like, here's my recall. Oh, awesome. Oh yeah, this is Dennis too. And so, yeah. He spelled it. And so, what I really wanted to incorporate was recall. And so when I'm up there teaching my lesson, I will just on the side, I'll be like, okay guys, this is really good for recall. This is really good to circle in your scriptures, to underline, to keep notes if you wanted to. Of course, I don't make them, but I'm just trying to train them for when they do get to see my class.
Megan really does enjoy marking up her scriptures.
Yes, she does.
Scripture markers, because, I mean, when she was showing me today, she's like, Mom, it's all about the heart, you know, and
Mhm.
the Psalm of Righteousness, prayer to me, and
Yeah.
I thought, that is cool. We need to get you some scripture markers though, because
The markers.
it's not working out well.
Somebody gave some to my daughter one time, and it's a set of colored pencils, and they're all short. And it even comes with its own little sharpener in the set. I don't know. You have to determine whether that's too many pencils, or if she'd be better off with just one red pencil. Good question. And that's the parents' decision, but they passed it on cute. She did good.
With cursive.
Sometimes when you sit down and ask her to do something, she doesn't want to write cursive, and I don't want to do that, but she just sat there and decided to do this. Wasn't that she just did it, and I just said, because I worked with her yesterday, I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, because she really didn't want to do it yesterday. Oh, that word is so long. She didn't say that, but she said that word.
It's fun to watch her cursive.
She's got
And
really
yes,
good
she's really good with
It's
cursive.
getting better. I enjoy her cursive much more than I enjoy her print. Can't say that much.
Same with this kid right here.
So yeah, so recall is a big part of what I've been focusing on, so just, okay, so, do you have any questions on Book of Mormon? Okay, so science. I've actually really enjoyed science. I've never liked science in my life, but teaching it is actually quite fun. We've been working on the lung system, the lungs, respiratory system, and we're finishing up that this month and possibly seeing how it goes, possibly going into bones. But I don't think we'll make it. I think we'll just be working on lungs because there's quite a lot to cover still. But today was fun because I brought a bag of pepper and I gave me to Kleenex, and we were talking about keeping your lungs clean and what happens when there's stuff attacks you. What happens? You either sneeze or you cough. And so I passed around the pepper and for them to take a deep breath. And it took them a while to sneeze. It's like a half hour later, I kept hearing kids sneeze. But it was fun to watch Kelson because his eyes got all watery and his face just got all scrunched. He's like, I can feel it, but he didn't sneeze until later. And so that was fun to teach them about the defense system of the body, and then to relate, we kind of related it spiritually a little bit. We kind of touched on that. We've also, the other day, we were timing them to see how long they could hold their breath, and that was fun too. They seem to like these little competitions. I've noticed, especially Kelson. He's very competitive, and so that was fun. What I wanted to focus more on science is more of the spiritual part, relating it back. I kind of touched on it a little bit today, but I feel like I need to do more. And so, and we've been doing really good with spiritual, but just to relate it back to kind of what they do in senior class, um, where there's a spiritual side and there's a physical side. So like today, I kind of was thinking, so we've got the rib cage that protects the lungs. And so I kind of related it back to the breastplate of righteousness, how it kind of protects us. And so just kind of more of that I'd like to do. But science has been really fun. This next week will be a science experiment. That should be fun too. And then the dinosaur, Brother Cummings kind of touched on the dinosaur museum. I don't know if he
got a little confused.
I think
was
he
trying
got a
to put it
little,
this month.
yeah, I think he got a little confused. But in the book, so the next subject or the next system or the next thing we'll be working on is bones, and it suggests to go to, I don't know if we can do this, but to go to like the butcher or whatever and get bones, and then you look inside of them. But then I thought, or she thought of the good idea to go. I guess there's a dinosaur museum in St. George, and to go there. And I think that would be lots of fun. And so somehow we can.
It'll be outside of school. It'll be a field trip.
Yeah.
Like on a Friday or a Saturday.
Yeah.
You know.
And so,
yeah, bring the rest of the family too. It's fun.
and so that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. So that would be in January. So
So do you want bones? Do you want somebody to try to see if there's a butcher in town to give us some bones? Because there are people that do.
I could see my chicken bones.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's people like this who can take your venison and whatever and butcher it for you. I mean, there are actual butchers in town.
okay.
They would have bones. Yeah, I'll bet they would have some. Can we get some bones?
Yeah. Can we have some? How gross, but how cool at the same time to look inside of those. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. Then yeah, that would be fun.
So do you know about when you'll be teaching them? Because you probably don't want to get them until
Right.
closer.
It was freezing.
It's true. It'll be, of course, after Christmas. So closer to January. Probably like the first week of January, I think. Or, well, the first week back to school.
Yeah, so somewhere in the
So-
7th, 8th, or 9th.
Yeah. So somewhere in there is, I'm trying to remember the books, is where they had it.
Well, and not only that, but if it comes in, if you know it's coming at a different day than when it's scheduled in the book, you just switch the lessons.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Bones could be fun. I can see how this is going to be fun. So that's for science. Excuse me. Okay. Language arts. Or does anybody have any questions on science yet? Anything? Okay. Language arts. So my main focus that I've been wanting to focus on is getting him to complete a principle. That's confidence. So I've been going through a lot of their books and noticing that they just have half principles, and then they have those. And so my main focus is I want them to fall in love with the service projects, the academic service projects. I know when I went to Kimber, I absolutely loved those. It does something to you spiritually, internally. Like it just opens up the world, and you start seeing things different. I know for me, when I actually got into the service projects, when I actually started completing my principles, I started looking for service projects, and I started looking for people who needed that service in their life, and I know it's so beneficial. And so what I really just wanted them to do is to see how fun it could be to apply what they're learning in language arts and applying it to their service projects to give it away. And so that's my main focus. And so that way they can gain confidence with completing those. And then, so this month, we did have a monthly service project, and that was our gratitude journals. And so, these are really fun. That's Megan's and Kelsey's. And so, they created those all month of November, and they just finished those today. And so the initial idea was for them to give them away to somebody, and they would write on, they would leave one page, they'd write on one page what they're thankful for, and then they'd leave it blank for the other person to write. So they got a little instructions. And so that was so much fun to see what they created and the things they did. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if maybe could, yeah. And so, that was really fun to do.
She likes to do the other thing that, she gets that yeah. Let's do that first.
She didn't get very far, but she did. Definitely spend a lot of time with pictures, that's for sure. And so that was so great. And so I don't know if we'll keep, I thought about that today, it was to keep them here so they can take them and give them away. I think so. Because I was like, oh, I'll just give them to the parents, but then I thought, no, they'll probably want to give them away themselves. So that was our language arts project. It's so fun to see the difference between Megan and Kelson and their
Kid? Shoot, now I have to like look at this because I'm my best.
yeah, there you go. I didn't know you
She really likes to. It was interesting because we've been talking about, do we keep going or do we do the homeschool thing? Because his main concern was, I get to see my friends. We could probably still invite him over. He's like, okay, but only if I can, keep seeing him.
yesterday it was kind of funny.
We're in such a bind.
It's hard. It's such tough decisions, and when I've had these sick days, I've tried to homeschool at home again, and I'm like, it's just so much harder here. I don't know why. I've been school for a long time.
Joseph was in the senior class yesterday, and so their break was different than ours. And Kelson, he just comes in and he just was like, this break was, I don't remember what he said, but to the effect of this break was the worst ever. Yeah, he said something to that effect, and I was like, well, how come? Did you forget a snack? Well, what was wrong? I didn't get to play with Joseph. Oh, okay.
And break is only 10 minutes. It's not like it's this long, drawn out half-hour recess. It's a drink and a snack and a bathroom, and let's go back to school.
You know, and so the next subject was math, and kind of the same thing with language arts. Is I just wanted them to complete a principle.
He actually did that. Some song, and it was, I just never answered. So,
Walked over to the piano.
sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Oh, for language, I forgot. For language arts today, he wrote his own story. He doesn't like language arts very much. And so I was like, Kelson, the other day I was like, Kelson, can you pull out your language arts book? I don't have it. Oh, so, oh, did you leave it at home? No, it's here. I was like, well, where's it at? It's in my backpack. Like, can you pull it out for me? And he's just like, oh, okay. And so he pulls it out. Once he gets going, he's great, but he has so much fun. But it's just like, that was so
Has
nice.
this stigma against,
Starting something.
no, against reading and writing and creativity in that.
But when he gets going,
Oh, yeah.
I wish I would have asked for their books
You
today.
need to somehow teach him how it can be so
the
fun.
love is coming. The love is coming.
I had him write a letter. And he's been asking me, Mom, can we write letters to my school friends? Yeah, because we'd send it to the school and they would read. And I'm like, yeah. And so I finally had to sit down with him and have him write it. And he's like, this is too, because I wanted him to write it in cursive, because that was the practice, you know. So this is too hard. I know. And he'll like dwell on how hard and difficult it's going to be for like 3 hours, and then take 15 minutes to write it. And I said, yo, we could have skipped the whole drama of it and just gone straight to the writing, and you'd have been done and out.
That's funny.
He's funny. I know once he gets started, he'll be okay, but it's just like pulling out of the book and looking at the principal. He's funny. I love reading with him. He's funny. But today this week, so we've been focusing on finishing, finishing that and then also finishing a principal and the little service project they have in their book. And it was to write a story. Well, yeah, it was to write a story and to give it away. But at the end of the principal, it was to write sentences. But he wrote a story. It wasn't a
Writing the
sentence.
sentences was a story.
Yeah.
Because he connected the sentence.
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, you just pretty much wrote your story. So if we're gonna give it away, just get out a nice piece of paper, just write your story on this nice piece of paper, and then you can give it away. And
Did he
he's
say,
fast.
oh, really? Because if I'd had him do that, he'd be like, I have to rewrite it.
He kind of did that, and I didn't. He barely has started, and so I haven't really asked him to do cursive. So kind of waiting for that one because I know he needs to practice.
Just don't have him write it and then rewrite it in cursive. Or
Yeah.
write it and then rewrite it and then rewrite it in cursive. 'Cause he'll be like,
In class, we ask them to always write in cursive.
Yeah.
We just instruct them to write in cursive unless they don't know how. And he's got beautiful cursive, so I take every opportunity to tell him how beautiful it is. Because I find that most of us really respond well to praise. You know, if we do something well, we like to know we did it well.
I mean, he's always taken pride in his
And
penmanship.
everything he does.
Well, yes, and everything, but particularly the penmanship, because he'll have comments from the teachers, principal, you know, they'll say something that he's written, oh, you have such a nice penmanship, you know.
Yeah.
And so he does take great pride in it. He just does not like to write.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons the academic service project works so well is they have to apply the principle they've learned, and because it's been given to someone, it has to be correct. You know, and so it causes them to need to make it right because it's a gift. And It's genius.
Yes.
They really care, you know, I'm looking at what my daughter put together for her friend. She put a lot of thought into what she put in there, just like Kelson did, and even Megan did too. They care about what they give to somebody.
I think she actually does good to hire, since it's too high.
That's what she made it
People
for.
like it a lot, because then he'll be with our pictures too.
And he'll have hers to look at too. And he's got lots of blank pages in there. If you don't want that many, feel free to pull them out.
It's definitely been fun working with him. So math. Math was fun today. So it's kind of, I just wanted to focus on the same thing with language arts, is just completing the principle. The goals that have been written down by you guys, so nice. That is so nice to have. And so today I was kind of struggling a bit, and I was like, oh yeah, they have goals. And so I ran in there and I got it. And then it's so helpful, especially with Kelsey, because I can sit down and be like, this is what your mom would like you to work on. And then he kind of was like, well, okay, if she wants to work on this, you know, you can see him change, the attitude change. And so today we worked on principle 12 in the math book. It's so funny. The division. So he knows it, and he knows that division well. And so he comes up to me on the first problem, and he's like, this is wrong. I was like, well, okay, let's figure it out together. So we read it together, and I was like, well, I'm not sure, should we? Let's read it some more, let's figure it out. And so he just kept saying, it's wrong, it's wrong. So it's like, okay, so I brought out my calculator, and it had the answer that was in the book, but he thought it was wrong. And it was just funny to watch him. And he's like, that is so wrong. And then so he takes the book again, and he looks at it, and he looks at me, and he's like, oh. And then he walks past his table. And I kind of joked with him. I was like, you thought you were smarter than the book, didn't you? And he just was like, wow. That was so much fun to see that.
I think it's good that he, if he thinks that it's wrong, that he actually
Had to work to figure it
Yeah.
out.
something.
It was so good. And I was so glad that he said that. I was so glad that he's like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, okay, well, let's work through it. And because it teaches them to continually work through it until that was good. And it was also fun to see we didn't finish the principle, but it was fun to see it was teaching other ways to set up division, which he must have not learned yet, because he was like, I don't understand this. I don't think my mom wants me to do it this way. And I was like, well, she does want you to do principle number 12. So, and I said, it's just teaching you other ways to set it up. And he's like, I don't know. I already have my own way. And I was like, well, this will teach you to be a super genius when it comes to division. And he's like, oh. And he's like, okay, I think I got it. And I was like, okay. And then I walked away. So that was
She was inspired almost.
yeah. So that was fun.
The Spirit tells you exactly what to say to a child that they works for them.
That would do it. That would do it. Because he is very particular, and he looks to me far too much. And as Dr. Kimber was.
Oh, yes.
The mother was. I'm like, oh my laws. And there are times when I'm like, okay, somehow I have to take myself out of this picture because he looks to me too much. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate the fact that he likes to do as I ask and do as I say. And, you know, I like that I can just say, Kelson, go do this, and he goes and does it. But I need to think on your own process to start kicking in sometime.
Self-government.
Like, yeah, the self-government.
It'll come definitely. And
Well, sure.
the thing that I thought of today, I definitely thought of what Dr. Kimber said about that. And I was as I was sitting there, that's exactly what was going through my mind. I was like, okay, public school teaches that no allegiance to the mom, but this is Kimber County. So I was sitting there and I was trying to think of a way, like, I know his mom wants him to do this, but I can't just say, like, I was trying to make it, And so I had that going through my head all day today, like, okay, I have to make it so I think your mom would be okay with that. Instead of, no, just do it, you know,
Yeah.
because that was taken away.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we watched that today because that just kept going through my mind. So it was a good.
I like that with the goals, because the mother and
Yes.
father set the goals. So as a teacher and a teacher's aide, we kind of like do the back and forth. It allows us to turn the child back to the parent. And when I sent my first child to kindergarten, I no longer knew anything in her eyes.
Yeah.
It was all about what the teacher thought. And she had a wonderful kindergarten teacher. Loved the woman. But for some reason, that particular venue provides a place where the children no longer value the parents and their opinions. And I love the fact that with the goal setting, we can help them to recognize that they're being obedient as well, and turning them back to you, who are there. You're the ones who receive
Which
inspiration
I
from your
have
children.
I've actually been noticing a change in Megan.
Really?
A huge, haven't you noticed? She is, now don't get me wrong, she's not like completely obedient. She is very, stubborn. But I have noticed that when I ask her to do something, I only have to ask her 3 or 4 times instead of 10 or 11 times. That's huge. That's huge. When and it's and on certain things I can ask her, and like if I call everybody into the room, I'll be like, hey you guys, come here, and she'll run in there. Mom, I was the first one in here. I was the first one to be obedient. I'm like, yes, thank you. No, but I have been noticing the change. I do think that it's, the influence is being felt.
It's good.
And dancing for joy.
That's so good. I love Megan. She's so funny. My mom has always taught me that her biggest thing when she was teacher administrator is like just seeing how to get on that child's level and to see what they need that day. And I've noticed with Megan that you can't just, like, at least for me as a teacher with a bunch of kids and distractions around, I can't just be like, hey Megan, can you sit down again? I have to go up to her and I have to get on her level and I have to take her head in my hand and she's to look at me and like, hey, do you think you can please sit down? She immediately goes to her seat. And so it's the whole getting on her level, and it's the whole physical touch, and then like, and so anytime I have an instruction, like, can you please put your books in your bag or pull this out, I'm like, can you make it? And so it's fun to watch that response. It's way fun. And so anyway, so that's for math, just the focusing on the love of math, because I know I personally cannot stand math. And so I know that,
I love it because it makes sense.
oh my gosh.
I can't stand pointless math.
Yeah.
There's pointless math. I mean, there is. The theoretical junk.
It might have a point for a few. There really must be more.
And then you have the stuff where you're like, oh, this I can use. And that's the stuff that, it's the genius stuff.
Yeah, and so that's my main focus is to create a love of math, and not just to make it fun, to make it creative, to make it to create the love and to work on the goals at the same time. And so that's kind of what my goal is for math.
Math is actually about creation. And if they can understand the beauty of the patterns in it and how it helps them to create and govern, they're putting their hand in
Even
God's
I have found that there's patterns in the different things. What blew my mind was when I was teaching Kelson his times tables. He didn't want to have to read. He's like, Mom, is there anything else I can do besides reading? Because I would trade a minute of reading for a minute of game time. And I said, well, yeah, you can learn multiplication. And this was like in between kindergarten and first grade. And he's like, okay. And so by the time he got to first grade, he had 0 through 12s memorized. And then when he got into first grade, he's like, how are we going to do multiplication? And the teacher's like, no, that's not until like 3rd or 4th grade. And so then he comes home very distraught. Mom, I've already learned what they're teaching me, and they're not letting me practice what I've already learned. I'm going to forget everything. And I said, well, just remember, as you forget this stuff, that you're not actually forgetting it. It's just going into a different part of your mind. And so when you have to recall it, then it will come to you quicker. And so then when he got into 3rd grade, he was like, you're right, Mom, I already know this stuff. Sweet. So we've been able to work with that. And he really likes math and science.
Yeah.
We have some pretty interesting discussions. He'll come up with something that I learned a while ago that I just don't gloss over stuff. I don't sugarcoat it. I just hit him upside the head with it,
Yes, I really didn't understand.
and he picks it up and goes. I mean, a couple of years ago, he asked me how airplanes fly. I'm an aviation nut. So I hit him with everything. Airfoil design, you know, little not Pythagorean, sorry, geometry. Bernoulli's principle and all this stuff. And it's like, I wonder how much of this is going to soak in. A few weeks later, someone was talking about airplanes and how they fly, and Kelson goes, well, what about Bernoulli? I was like, wow, you were listening. The other person was like, huh?
He's gonna pass me up. He's
He's already
awesome.
like right
Well,
there past me.
Do you not just get excited to think about what he's here to do?
It thrills me.
Just a
And that was one of the things that he was talking about, the purposes of our children and how we each have a purpose. What came to me was, you know, we should really pray about what our purpose is and then find out what it is and go for it. Like, I could do that. I could try.
Elder Iron was encouraging that in his priesthood session talk, I believe, last year, October.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great talk.
A couple of weeks ago, Kelson was, I guess, quasi showing off with siblings and math. It's like, well, you know, give me a math problem, blah, 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 you know, doing this. I'm like, okay, let's play that game. I'm like, smart aleck, what's the square root of 4 plus the cube root of 8? And I got, of course, the initial response that I had expected. What? I don't even. 4. It's like,
Oh.
You got it. Oh, my laws.
now you're just showing off.
Oh,
He's passing me up. I hope somebody knows math better than I do.
no, we're gonna find a different teacher.
What you do, you find a mentor.
Yeah. It was fun to watch also Megan today because she's learning oh now I can't think of what they're called, the house placements.
One sentence.
Yes, 110.
Replacement.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, and when I asked her what she was learning today, she actually said that she was learning about ones and tens and hundreds.
Good.
I know.
Did you see how it was
She-
raised in the book?
I didn't actually look at it, but
Perfect.
the fact that she actually told me something, I was like,
I had her work, it was fun today. It's just fun. I love working, I love being a teacher, but I was, because it's something you can do by yourself. I don't need to sit there then be like, okay, now, you know, do this. And so I kind of was like, okay, let's see if she can self-govern. And so I went through it once with her again. I mean, she's been doing it this week, but I sat down and I was like, okay, what are we doing? And she's like, well, this is how you do it. And I said, okay, so what's next? Well, I write it in my notebook. It's like, okay, so go ahead and do that. And then I'm like, well, what's next? And she swishes it off, and then she does another number, and so I just kept like, okay, so what's the next step? So I got up and I went to walk away, and she's like, where are you going? Come back. And I was like, no, you just showed me that you can do it, so go ahead and do it. She worked for about 5 minutes on her own doing that, and so that was exciting, and she got him down. And so today I kind of challenged her. I thought maybe we can bring in the 1,000 apps. So we made an extra box for 1,000, and that was challenging for her. We had only a little bit of time to work on that, so it'll be interesting. Maybe she can work on it at home or whatever. But that'll be interesting to see.
It's a deep concept for a 6-year-old.
Exactly. And so she kind of got it, like she got where the comma went and stuff. And so I know though if she got down the hundreds, I know she can get down the thousands, but it's just fun to challenge her, to give her another challenge. And so that's kind of what she's working on. And so she made her own house
I'm
today.
excited to see the process. I mean, even just the little steps, it's just great things, I tell you what.
It's kind of nice having a place like this because, I mean, the kids, they'll come up and ask me something. It's like, well, what do I do with this? And my typical answer is, what do you think you should do with that?
Good answer.
Well, it should go here. All right then.
Exactly.
And
See,
it's-
and
it's
I grew up
nice
in a
having-
family where it was always ask before you do anything. And so my frame of mind is, just tell me what to do and I'll get it done. No thinking on my part. And so it is detoxing me. And I'm like struggling with, okay, how much of this is just me freaking out and how much of it is just, just change that I'm not used to, so.
So it's nice because, I'm trying to encourage, we try and encourage
Yeah.
thinking. You don't need stuff step by step.
I know.
You know the concept and you can think through stuff when they go a little bit haywire.
Yeah, you got the concept.
Freak out for an hour and a half.
Yeah, definitely. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see the intrinsic values in these subjects. Definitely self-government today with Megan. That was a lot of fun. And even Kelson, just that he was able to self-govern. And so that's math, kind of what we're working on. History. This month, the next 2 weeks, we've been in, I guess it could kind of be considered Middle East history. Freedom of worship is what we're learning. And so we're learning about 3 main religions. And so this week we just covered the Arabs. And so the Islamic religion. And that was kind of fun. We learned about Muhammad and we learned about some of their traditions, and they're more similar to us than I ever thought. And so it was fun to learn about them, but also bring it back to our religion and why we fast and our temple worship and just this stuff just to bring it back. And so that was kind of fun this week. Next week is we'll be talking about Jews. Excuse me, and they have a craft in there, and a project, and we'll be making. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember? Kippas.
Kippa?
No, okay, yeah, kippas, and a shawl. And so it says that we need 2 foot, 2 foot square of white cloth, for this project. For the girls, sorry, for the girls. So you'd only need 2, yeah.
The kid, whether they're gonna make out a piece of white paper.
Yeah, and that's in their book, so that's easy. And so, yeah, so just 2 foot square white cloth that she said, rip it out of a tablecloth, whatever but yeah, and so we'll be making the shawls. I know, right? And so,
I have the DI, see if they got anything there.
Oh, yeah.
oh,
DI,
that's a
see
good
if they
idea.
ever change.
I just so forget that we have stores like that. I mean, I know that they're there.
I'm the original thrift shop girl, so I'll always remind you.
Well, and up in Valdez, they have a thrift store there, and that's where we'd always go. But here, you know, we never had Walmart up there, and so it was, let's go to Walmart. So I have to remind myself.
Well, they sometimes have remnants too.
Yeah, well, it's so inexpensive that for 2 foot square, so. So yeah, so that will be our little tiny project for one of those, these days. It'll be next week.
So we
So,
can just make sure it's here on Tuesday, then whatever. day
yeah,
it is.
that's what I was, yeah.
Sure.
And so we'll be learning about that religion next week. Or that, yeah, and then the next week, is Christian, and we will be learning about the real story of Christmas.
I don't know, Christians.
And will be, so they have in their Christmas program, a Christmas play, a little tiny one. So this week we've been practicing the songs for that. And so, figure out what day, I don't remember, I don't know if we figured out a definite day yet.
It's set for Tuesday.
Tuesday?
We talked about maybe practicing and really working it out on
Yeah.
Tuesday and performing it Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or right after school Tuesday, depending on, maybe just right after school.
Yeah, so we'll call, we'll let you know, like, when to come in and we'll have them perform. And so I'll get that.
Can you take lunch right now?
Most days, yes.
That might just be perfect. But yeah, I'll get the actual set details ASAP.
Do you,
If we-
does anybody have a big light up star?
And that's what I was just gonna ask, yeah.
They let, no, I left all that.
No, I'm thinking I might just buy this strand of Christmas lights and
Just
just
do the star, yeah.
make the shape of a star. Cause you want it to light up all of a sudden when the star comes.
Yeah. And so just the only concern about a play that I had was just the costumes and I think the set, but the set could be easy with stuff.
I actually have, was
Yeah,
that,
we do have like a cradle.
Oh,
I have a manger that Bob built a few years ago just out of wood, I don't know.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
that and,
I mean, it's just it's a wooden cradle on rockers.
see, that's perfect.
Perfect.
It's
It is,
pretty big.
Okay.
it's about this big.
Okay.
As long as you keep the end that says Tanya.
Yeah.
Because it was built by a good
Well,
friend and
probably.
teacher in Valdez who built boats.
Oh,
So he built it kind of like he would
That's fun.
the hull of a rowboat,
oh, no.
or rowboat, riverboat.
So, you know, if we ever get in that Moses situation, we'll be able to.
Yeah.
That's a baby.
That's cute.
Right on the river.
There you go.
I think when I read it says about lining up the blanket, so
I'm sure.
we'll just cover up the top now.
Well, and it's carved into the wood, so.
No, okay.
That's cute.
It's not that
I
much.
have quite a few those types of costumes. So
I was gonna say, you
can.
could pull them from.
We like to do a Christmas pageant on Christmas Eve at our house, so we gather and collect.
Yeah, it's not too hard. So just a forewarning, there will be a little Christmas program performance, and we've been practicing the songs. And boy, do your kids love to sing. It's fun to watch
See
through.
like music or else.
I like that. And then other than that, so January looks like
Interesting,
American
you can
history.
have it memorized, and then one of them sings it wrong. No, Megan, you're wrong on that one. No, Kelsey, you're wrong. No, you're, Mom, get out the primary book. Look it up.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fun.
we're both wrong.
That's usually the way that.
And so January, it looks like that we'll be focusing on, the book is American history, and so more of the American history. And so, other than that, history I know needs another recall. We've been kind of doing a narrative recall, but I'd like to do more of an actual recall. Not silent, but something where they're something more than just getting up here and being like, okay, what do you remember about this? Do you remember about this? Like something more maybe hands-on or something like that. And so I've got to figure that out. And if you have any suggestions for some Jeopardy,
That's fun.
that's good. Okay, I will write that down. Yes. My mom always was famous for that.
I have a whole page of narrative recall ideas.
Yeah.
And if you, do the computer stuff, there are free PowerPoint templates for Jeopardy out there.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
We used to do that, like, all up to student orientation and stuff like that.
Oh,
If you need help.
yeah.
We know who to call.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I wrote that
You're
down.
pretty smart with that type of stuff.
Good.
Computer stuff.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
95% of the time he's on the call.
so that's pretty much history, of wanting to focus on more of a recall. But anyway, other than that, that's pretty much all that I have. Do you guys have any questions, concerns, complaints? Anything of profound worth?
No, not really. If you'd asked me yesterday, I'd been like, I don't know what I've been like. But today I'm good.
Oh, good.
I go up and down, we all do, and then you have the added hormones of pregnancy, help you out.
Like, yeah.
Oh, good.
See what I did is, I said, oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing this, I could just be doing this. And you're watching, I could just be doing this.
Yeah.
And then I convinced her with some of the class, I could not do this. Sometimes, I actually, I mean, I could get by, but
Yeah.
if there's just some things, about, I mean, there is something to be said about having the interaction and, you know, yeah, we could, and that was another thing that the kids brought up. Mom, would we have devotionals? Yeah, we would still do that. Who would play the piano?
Oh, yes, on our music.
Yeah. We just play on tablets. Anyway, and so, you know, it has been one of those things that just, it's just beating around in my head. And then I come in and I sit and why this is so important and all that good stuff. How having that interaction and knowing that it's not just them, it's not just me that's saying, hey, this is important stuff to be learning. It's not just me, and I think that's key for any of my children.
Well, they're not questioning you. Yeah, you know,
Oh, yeah.
that comes later, but it does come.
Yeah, and to have that support, you know, there's just something to be said about that. And so I do think that I will wait a longer amount of time before I put them in. They'll probably be 8 when they get in instead of 6, because by then they know how to read, and they know the basics. Because I I'm really good at teaching the basics. Anything beyond that, like Kelson, he's got up to division. I'm like, I don't know what comes next. Geometry, algebra. Yeah.
Well, the next consideration, remind me before you go to take a look at
I
it.
do need to.
It's a basic review of all those recent facts. Just
Before
make
you
sure
do.
they're solid. You'll be done with them. Seriously.
Yeah, because that's what I'm. That's
And then
what
they
I'm.
move into fractions, they move into decimals, and then from there you determine.
Fractions and decimals. I knew I was forgetting something else. I know
From there you determine your order.
But you do also have to remember with math, and for a kid like Kelson, that he may be able to get it just like that, but but also there is the spiritual part. And sometimes for a very logical kid like Kelson, the spiritual part is going to come a little harder. And so he may be able to breeze through that book just like that, but it'll be interesting to watch him to see
Well,
adding
and that's why
spiritual.
I think moving him on to the next book would be a good idea, but keeping it at a good pace so that he actually understands the spiritual of it also. Because, I mean, I could have him go back and apply the spiritual throughout all of the stuff he already knows, but for him, that would be
torture.
yeah. And so I think that moving him on and then just starting with the basic of it.
It's gonna be more on too that he'll hear her teaching someone else the spiritual principle of something he already knows.
Yeah.
You know, the physical side of the nature of it, that will then begin to sink in as he's doing the spiritual nature of what he's currently on. Then he'll hear her discussing it, or maybe teaching it because you've got to keep working on it, and he'll start that whole way.
Yeah. I think that'd be good, but to put him on that same. I think he does need to advance, but
What's gonna, the next one gets him into more than he wants to. He'll like playing around with it.
oh yeah, because I mean,
History of what Rome
even
was.
in the I mean, you look at this here, where you had all the, with this, he's
Yeah.
really big into that, and
And he discovered that before we ever got to it.
yeah, yeah, it was so funny because he wrote a note to me, and it's in his binder, but he wrote a note to me in this language, and he's like, Mom, can you figure out what it is? Well, I've always been really good at those puzzle things, figuring out, the whole thing.
Code ones.
Yeah, and so I look at it, and I look at and it's a letter, and so I automatically say, Dear Mom, and pattern is there for Dear Mom. So I take him there, and I just threw his whole letter. And he's like, so I take it, and I solve it out, and then I take what he had up here, and I wrote him a message back, and I said, here you go, Kelsey, I handed to him. He said, Mom, you cheated. Did you look at my book? I just laughed. He said, no, I didn't. But he, and so we wrote back and forth. Little messages. This is, message. Are you okay, Mom? Okay. Yeah. Don't ever lose that page because I'll never remember it. It was funny to see. Yeah. So it was just interesting to see how he does things, how his little mind operates, and how floored he was that I actually got it. I'm not so dumb that way.
And Rob.
It's nice to have a program like this with the math and the science where you bring God and spirituality back into it, because that's something with him, his love of science and all that, I've been constantly trying to reinforce too. It's like, yeah, we have all this stuff, the scientists are great, but remember where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father inspires these guys to make these discoveries.
Yeah.
They don't give him credit. They go, oh, look what I did, look what I did. But it's not just them. You know,
Yeah.
he uses that so that we can do other stuff with it.
Exactly.
And so it's nice.
Yeah. And yeah, during math, I've definitely wanted to bring in the spiritual. I struggle with math personally. I really do. I just don't like it, and so I'm struggling to. I'm struggling to teach it, and so I'm struggling to find a way I can implement the love of learning and the spiritual side. And so she showed me in the junior book where it just talks about simply just the symbols of math, just the plus sign. And so next week while they're working on their individual goals, I just kind of want to read the spiritual side of the plus.
And I just like,
I like spiritual side.
I did like Neverlander at Junior.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Subtraction is the link between them that takes away.
That's awesome. I love that. I love
right.
that.
So that way, the stuff that Kelson might have missed in the younger books, like I'll just read it while he's doing his division or whatever. That way, it can sink in that there's the spiritual side. So that way, we can bring that in also, incorporate that. Yeah. And anyway, that's all I have.
The next few parent meetings, we'll be going through more of these training videos that Dr. Kemp put together, and the next ones talk about each different subject and why they created them the way they created them. And you'll
And
love the exercise.
I'm looking forward to it because I remember when the year and a half that we did the Benjamin Franklin Academy, of almost grasping the concept of it, but then we stopped quite a bit. But I like the idea of the self-learning and applying it. And I think that that's, in the education that I've got, I'm more of the, how does it apply in my life? Does it apply in my life? And if it does, you know, yeah. And if it applies, then I'll certainly apply it. And if it doesn't, then I don't do that.
Well, and that's why it works the way he and his wife have formulated this, because when they learn the why, the how is easy.
Yeah.
You know, if you understand why you need to learn something, you do.
And that's why we tell them. That's why I tell them every day before recall, this is why we're doing recall. So hopefully when they get down, oh, this is why I'm doing it, they'll be able to do it just perfectly.
Well, and sitting in sacrament, a sacrament time is a recall time. It's very rarely used that way, but it's actually a recall.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about, my prayers too. My prayers, that's what you think, right?
There you go. Lord, you watch over me. If not, I'm so sorry. I'll do better tomorrow.
There's no repenting tonight, then then you have to try to remember what you did wrong so you can repent later. It's just so much easier to repent that night. Prayer.
I need more water. Sorry. Let's have a prayer, a closing prayer, real quick.
Okay.
Actually, Brother Rasmussen, if you would mind giving that. We've got refreshments.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the time that we've been able to be here and discuss the teaching of children, share ideas, and counsel with each other. We're thankful for thy help and thy guidance and all things. Bless us that we'll be able to figure out those things that we need to do in order to help the children who are going to grow as they need to. We love you very much. We say this in Jesus Christ. One of my favorite things to do for math is a computer networking key.
Uh-huh.